The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Nora Seed, a woman burdened by regrets and a pervasive sense of unfulfillment, finds herself at a crossroads. On a rainy Tuesday night, after a series of disappointments, losing her job, the death of her beloved cat Voltaire, and the crumbling of her relationships, she decides to end her life. But instead of oblivion, she awakens in the Midnight Library, a mystical place between life and death, presided over by Mrs. Elm, her kindly school librarian from years past. The library is an infinite expanse of green-bound books, each representing a different life Nora could have lived had she made different choices. Mrs. Elm explains that Nora is in a liminal space, neither alive nor dead, and the library offers her a chance to step into these alternate realities to see if another path might hold the key to happiness she so desperately craves. Before embarking on this journey, Mrs. Elm presents Nora with a unique gray book, the Book of Regrets. Its pages are filled with every regret Nora has ever harbored, from the trivial to the profound, a tangible manifestation of her self-perceived failures. The weight of these regrets is overwhelming, nearly suffocating her, and she quickly closes the book. Her first foray into an alternate life is the pub life, a reality where she stayed with her fiancé, Dan, and they fulfilled their shared dream of running a cozy pub in the Oxfordshire countryside. She finds herself outside the Three Horseshoes on a quiet village road, married to Dan, and seemingly living the idyllic life she once longed for. However, the reality is far from her idealized vision. Dan is distant, drinks heavily, and reveals infidelities, shattering the illusion of happiness. The dream she mourned for is tainted by the very flaws she sought to escape. Disappointment washes over her, and she's transported back to the library. Back in the Midnight Library, Nora is confronted with the daunting task of choosing another life. She expresses her desire to simply be a good cat owner, to undo the regret of Voltaire's death. Mrs. Elm provides the corresponding book, and Nora finds herself back in her own bed, in her own flat, on the same fateful night. But her relief is short-lived. Voltaire is still dead, this time from a pre-existing heart condition. This experience, though painful, teaches Nora a valuable lesson. Some regrets are based on misplaced guilt, not reality. She had loved and cared for Voltaire as best she could. This realization lightens the burden of that particular regret. Next, Nora yearns for the life where she joined her best friend, Izzy, in Australia, working on whale-watching tours. In this reality, she lives in a small, depressing apartment in Sydney with a conspiracy theorist flatmate. She learns the devastating news that Izzy died in a car crash. The trip to her birthday party tragically cut short. The vibrant Australian adventure she envisioned becomes a stark reminder of life's fragility and the unpredictable nature of fate. Feeling increasingly lost and disillusioned, Nora requests a life where she is successful. This leads her to a life as a double Olympic gold medalist, a celebrated swimmer who achieved her father's dreams but at a steep personal cost. Her parents are divorced, her mother died years earlier, and her relationship with her brother, while seemingly positive, is driven by financial dependence. She feels disconnected from this high-achieving version of herself, a stranger in a life built on external validation and the sacrifice of her own passions. The hollowness of this successful life sends her back to the library. Her conversation with her father in this life is particularly poignant. He is alive, seemingly healthy and happy, but their relationship is strained. He is dismissive of her emotions, and the joy of his continued existence is overshadowed by the knowledge of the pain he caused her mother. The weight of this reality, coupled with the pressure of delivering a motivational speech she feels completely unqualified for, becomes unbearable. She sabotages the speech, confessing her disillusionment with the very concept of success, and is whisked back to the Midnight Library. As Nora continues to jump between lives, the library itself begins to show signs of instability. The lights flicker, books fall from the shelves, and Mrs. Elm reveals that the library's existence is tied to Nora's will to live. Nora's growing despair threatens to unravel the entire Midnight Library. In a desperate attempt to find meaning, she asks to experience the life where she pursued her childhood dream of becoming a glaciologist. She finds herself in Svalbard, the remote Norwegian archipelago in the Arctic Circle, working alongside a team of climate researchers. This life is harsh and physically demanding, but it offers a profound connection to nature and a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. She faces a near-death experience when confronted by a polar bear, a stark reminder of life's preciousness and the inherent drive to survive. During this life, she encounters another slider, Hugo Lefebvre, a man who navigates alternate realities through a video store. He explains the scientific basis for their experiences, linking them to the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. He reveals that they are not alone, that there are others who slide between lives, each searching for a reality they want to inhabit permanently. Hugo's presence offers a strange comfort, but his detached approach to life, his endless pursuit of novelty without commitment, unsettles Nora. She realizes she doesn't want to drift endlessly between realities. She craves a life to call her own, a place to finally land. Inspired by Hugo's encouragement to dream big, Nora asks to experience a life of fame. She becomes the lead singer of the Labyrinths, a globally successful band, living a life of adoration and creative fulfillment. But this reality, too, is fraught with challenges. The pressures of fame, the constant media scrutiny, and the emotional toll of a highly public life weigh heavily on her. She learns the devastating news that her brother Joe died from an overdose in this reality, a loss that underscores the ephemeral nature of fame and the deep, enduring importance of family. As the library's instability intensifies, Mrs. Elm urges Nora to delve deeper into her regrets to understand the root of her unhappiness. Nora realizes that the lives she's been trying on are not truly her own. They are the dreams of others she adopted out of a desire for approval and a fear of forging her own path. She remembers a small act of kindness from Ash, the surgeon who found her dead cat. She asks to experience the life where she said yes to his offer of a coffee, a seemingly insignificant decision that takes her to a life beyond anything she could have imagined. In this reality, she is married to Ash, living in a beautiful house in Cambridge, and they have a young daughter, Molly. She's a respected philosophy professor, writing a book about Thoreau, and surrounded by a loving family. This life appears perfect, a dream come true. But as the days turn into weeks, a nagging feeling persists. Despite the love and happiness she experiences, a sense of unease lingers. She feels like an imposter, an observer in someone else's life, a reality she didn't create but merely stepped into. The visit to Mrs. Elm in the care home is a pivotal moment. Learning of the librarian's death in this reality, Nora is confronted with the ephemeral nature of all lives, even the seemingly perfect ones. She realizes that even in the best of circumstances, loss and sadness are inevitable parts of the human experience. As she drives back to Cambridge, she feels the familiar symptoms of her imminent return to the library. Despite her desperate pleas to stay in this idyllic life, she is pulled back to the crumbling midnight library. The library is in a state of collapse, books burning, the ceiling falling. Mrs. Elm explains that time has started moving in the library, a sign that Nora's root life is nearing its end. Nora is faced with a stark choice: find a life to inhabit permanently or cease to exist altogether. Mrs. Elm urges Nora to find the one book that won't burn, the book representing her original life. As the library crumbles around her, Nora pushes through the debris and flames, driven by a newfound will to live. She finds the book, but its pages are blank. With a pen given to her by Mrs. Elm, Nora must write her own ending. Her first attempts, Nora wants to live, Nora decides to live, fail to trigger the transfer. It's only when she writes, "I am alive," a declaration of her inherent existence and the powerful acceptance of her own life, that the library finally dissolves. Nora awakens in her own bed, violently ill from the overdose, but alive. She stumbles out of her flat, seeking help from her elderly neighbor, Mr. Banerjee. As she collapses on his doorstep, the realization washes over her. She is back in her own life, a life she once deemed unworthy, but now filled with the potential for happiness. In the aftermath, she reconnects with her brother, who reveals his own struggles with alcohol and heartbreak. She rebuilds her relationship with Izzy, learning that her best friend is planning to return to the UK. She reaches out to Doreen, resuming Leo's piano lessons and reigniting his passion for music. She visits Mrs. Elm in the care home, sharing a game of chess and finding comfort in the shared experience of regret and the enduring power of kindness. Nora begins to live her life with a newfound appreciation for the ordinary, the mundane moments that once filled her with despair. She embraces the imperfections of her reality, realizing that true happiness lies not in achieving some idealized version of herself, but in accepting and celebrating the messy, beautiful reality of her own existence. She starts writing music again, inspired by the experiences she's had, the different versions of herself she glimpsed in the Midnight Library. She rediscovers her passion for learning, her curiosity about the world, and the simple joy of being alive. The Midnight Library, once a refuge from her pain, becomes a distant dream, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lie within the one life she has been given. If you enjoyed this book breakdown, please consider liking this video and subscribing to get notified when we post our next book.